Okay, so hello everyone. So welcome to the second day of the GDSC WinterFest. I am Tanmay and I am the GDSC web lead for this tenure. And we also have Nick.
Hello everyone, this is Nikit and I'm your co-lead for this tenure.
Okay, so in today's event, let me just first share my screen. Okay, screen is visible. So in today's event, we'll be introducing you to REST APIs. So let's just first start with what we'll be covering in this event. So we'll first try to understand how it works and why there is a need for APIs. Then we'll go into REST APIs and discuss some key concepts. After that, we'll be discussing few ways to secure your web APIs and communications. In the end, we'll be giving a beginner-friendly hands-on demonstration, which will include some best practices while developing your own APIs. So let's start with understanding how web actually works. For any web application that uses web, the client, which may be a browser or mobile app, will be making requests to API servers. These servers will have APIs, which will consist of set of endpoints and which will set some protocols with which a client can make requests to in order to retrieve or modify data. In this server, then this server will connect to the database and modify the data and send it back to the client. So now that we know how important APIs are, we will just understand how they form connections between clients and databases. So if you are creating a full stack web application, you will need to set up some API as a backend. So this API can have different architectures like REST APIs, GraphQL, RPC, etc. But in this event, we will be focusing on REST APIs only. So REST APIs are an essential part of modern web development as they allow for creation of scalable and flexible maintainable web applications. To understand this, let's just first talk about APIs. So APIs can provide a set of rules and protocols that define how two systems can exchange their data between them. So, but in our context, it will help the client to get data from the server and the database. As APIs open ways to communicate, they will also hide the complex business logic between them for different functions that we'll be exposing. So now let's just talk about what makes a web API RESTful. So REST or representation state transfer is an architectural
for developing web
APIs. For an API to be considered RESTful, an API must follow some rules and constraints. So we have client server architecture. The API should be designed to separate the client from the server. Through this, the client and server can be developed independent of each other. Statelessness. The API should not store any state information about the client. All the information needed to process a request should be included in the request itself. And the API should still be functional even if there is no previous stored information. Cacheability. The API should be designed so that the responses can be cached by the client if necessary. Caching is an important concept and helps improve performance and scalability of web servers. Instead of generating responses again and again, we can store these common responses and return them without any processing. To maintain the data accuracy in the cache, we will also have to implement some cache invalidation processes too. This will identify when data in the cache is no longer needed or is outdated, then removing it from the cache. Layered system. The API should be designed so that it can be used over a network and clients don't have to know the details of the server's internal implementations. Uniform interface. This means that the interface must be uniquely identified with each resource involved. Now we'll try to understand how different apps communicate over REST APIs. So in the client, we'll be making different types of HTTP requests to the server to get the desired data. We can use fetch in React, and there are also some third-party famous npm libraries like Axios that can be used. Depending on our request method, the API will be giving us response back like HTML, JSON, XML, and also the status code of the request so that the client can know whether the request was successful or not. So now we'll be talking about some HTTP methods. GET is used to retrieve data from the server by specifying parameters in the URL portion of the request. POST is used to send data to the server. These requests have a body which may contain data that we want to send, like form data and some medium. POT is used to replace some specific target data with the new data that is being sent in the body. Delete is used to delete the target data. As we can see in the diagram, the client or the browser is making GET requests to the server on specific routes. To get user data of a specific person, we can make a GET request to a specific route user followed by unique user ID, and then the server will fetch the user from the database and will return it to the client. Now we'll talk about how the different ways how you can secure your API. So the first method is rate limiting, in which you will be tracking API addresses of the request, where they are coming from, and targeting the time within which they can make more requests. If there are too many requests from a single IP address, then we can block that particular IP address for some time. With the help of this, we can reduce the chances of getting spammed and unnecessary usage of our resources. We can also use API keys, which are unique identifiers used to authenticate a user or a developer that may be calling our APIs. These API keys can also be used to track the amount of request and rate limiting. Apart from this, we should also be using proper TLS and SSL standards, which stands for Transport Layer Security and Secure Socket Layer. SSL is the standard technology for keeping an internet connection secure and safeguarding any sensitive data that is being sent between two systems, preventing anyone from reading and modifying any information transfer. For example, HTTPS is used to encrypt and secure the data being sent and received by the browser. So that were all the theoretical concepts, and now Nikit will give you a hands-on demonstration. Over to you, Nikit.
Thanks, Tanmay. And you did pretty great job with the PPT. So now I'll continue with the demonstration. Wait, let me share my screen. So we'll be using Node.js to build our API today. And yeah, here we are with an empty folder. So let's just start. Let's create a file. Let's call it index.js. We'll be using Node.js's default HTTP library to create an API, and later on, we'll use some kind of library. So let's import our HTTP library. I hope you guys are familiar with Node.js or JavaScript at least. And let's create a server, and that we can do using. Okay, let me disable Copilot. And HTTP is an interface, and it has a method called create server that lets us create server, and it takes a callback as its argument, and that callback gets two parameters from create server function, and those parameters will be request object and response object. And let's just listen to our ports. We need to be listening to a port in our device to be able to start the server. So this method takes two arguments, and the first one is the port number, and the second one is the callback, which is called after it has successfully started listening to that port. let's just print server is okay. And here we can, put our logic to handle the requests that we get. Any HTTP request will be handled by the code that we have inside this, this callback that we are passing to create server method. So for now, we'll just, whenever we get the request, we'll just send some string to our client. Uh, let's We have this end method on the response object, and uh, this signals that we are not going to write to the response the client anymore, and we are closing the connection. So we'll just for now we'll just write hello. Okay, now we have saved the file. Let's run it. You can run it using just fast writing this command node and your file name, node space index.js here, and we see the server is up message, meaning it's running fine. And let's create one more terminal, and we'll make a request. Like we can use any client actually. We You might have heard about Postman, Insomnia. These are few of HTTP clients. Even your browser is an HTTP client. You can use a browser to make direct requests to the server, or here in this case I'll be using a CLI client, that is CRUD, and I'll be making by default it's a GET request, so I don't need to do anything here. I just directly write the uh, our server's name, and we were listening to port 4000. So yeah, and I made a request, and as we had r- written the logic as like the it was gonna write hello from the server, and we got the message. We got the same message. It handled the request well. You may say. Cool. And suppose okay, as Tanay mentioned that we have different methods like HTTP methods. Actually, in HTTP we have lots of headers. Uh, those header provide us a lot of info related to our request, and okay we and client can mm, you know use multiple methods. Methods have semantic meaning to them. Like for example, when you make a get request, uh, you basically mean that you're trying to get some resource, and when you're using post method, you're indicating that you're gonna be creating something. So you should learn those semantic meanings. Here we were just handling all kinds of requests, but in case you want to be more particular, like if you only want to handle get, or you want to handle post, or like you want different logic for those, so you can do that this way using HTTP module. This is the way you can, or you can use another, you can use frameworks. So I'll just on sorry on request object we have this method called method that provides us what is the method the client is using while making the request. So we'll check if it is get. We'll send as a response that this is a get request, and we'll handle post request too. Let's just return because we don't want this function to continue after that, because once you have said that you cannot write to the response anymore, if you write it, it's going to throw an error. And here we'll make it post, and yes, we'll change this to cool. So let's rerun our server, and it's running fine. And let's make a get request. Let's see what we get. We got, this is a get request that we had. we had written the logic for that. Now let's send a post request. And we got this is a post request. So, and also, as we discussed earlier, like while define, okay, in HTTP, if you might have seen in like normal, if you have ever seen an API, you might have seen like there are different endpoints, and like like slash user, slash account, and different kinds of endpoints. So if you want to handle those in this case, you have a method on request object, which is URL. You can use that to handle. I mean, okay. We'll also specify if it is a get request. I mean, we don't have to, but let's just do that. So if we get a get request to that and to that endpoint, this code is gonna run. So we'll send this is me. And we'll just return the function so it doesn't throw an error. Let's rerun our server. That was in a different terminal. And it's up, and let's request to that. We were only handling the get request, so we'll be making a get request, not a post request. And we got this is me. And so you can write function, and you will have to write a lot of code actually, to handle for each endpoint those multiple methods. If you want to handle, you will have to write a lot of boilerplate to handle that situation. We have libraries or framework. If you want me to build one framework right now, you can just say it in the chat. I can do that, but let's use Express, the already existing one, and let's not reinvent the wheel. I will be using Express.js framework, and there are alternatives too, like Harpy, Fastify, Nest, etc. So I'll just delete this whole thing. If you have any doubt, you can ask in the question. I mean, in the chat box. Okay, nobody seems to having doubt though. Good. I'll delete this whole thing. Now let's use a library. Let's use. So before using any uh, any Node.js, like I want to install a package, I will have to create a manage the whole thing. Like when it makes our job easier actually. So let's initiate this directory as a node package. We can do that using yarn init. You can also use npm, npm. This is one of the, I mean, these are node package managers, versions of that. So I'm just initializing this directory as node package, and we have package.json. You can see all the information related to your package over here, and whenever you install any dependencies, it's going to be listed in this file itself. And yeah, this file is going to keep track of your whole project actually. And yes, let's start. Let's create a okay, let's install Express. That you can, for yarn, the command is yarn add, and whatever the library's name is. For in our case, it's Express. So I'll just add that. And as you saw, like like we were stopping the server and rerunning it again and again after we made changes to it. We don't want to do that again because it's tedious. So let's install a library called nodemon, which watches our file. Like if there are any changes in the file that we have made, it's gonna rerun the script, like specify, whatever command we specify, it's gonna run that. So let's install nodemon package. I'll install it as dev dependencies though. So now that we have all our packages installed, you can see the express is installed. Let's create a proper folder structure. I'll be I'll this is gonna be to complete basic thing. So I'll just have a source directory, and in that I'll have a server.js file, and that would contain all my code for the server. Cool. Now we are in the server folder, and also like earlier I was using CommonJS conventions, but now I want to use ECMAScript conventions. So for those are nothing but they just specify like how you import and they each have their pros and cons. So earlier I used CommonJS, now I'll be using ECMA ESM. So for that I'll need to make some changes to the package.json file, that is specify the type of module ecosystem that I want in my project. That I want module now, so I chose that. Let's go to now. Let's import Express. Let's create an instance of our Express app. Actually, when we import Express is a top level function. We can just directly call it, and it returns as an instance of Express app. And it similar to the HTTP module, it a common method called listen, which takes the same arguments, the port number and a callback. So when we specify 4000 here, it's going to be listening to that particular port. And let's hold. Now here we can handle our requests. So let's say I want to handle get request on this endpoint. This is just random I've chosen. Obviously, it will be different for when you will be building this any API. It's gonna be totally different. And this get method on the app instance, it takes two arguments. That is actually not two arguments. Okay, if the first argument will be a string, which will be your endpoint, and the rest of it could be middlewares and the handlers, request handlers, and request handler take two parameters, which is uh, request object and response object. Let's just handle this, and you can see along with the method that we had in HTTP libraries like end, uh, Express provides us much more stuff like res.status that lets us specify status of you know like we can specify, like we have a HTTP header, and we can that header will contain, so we can specify using that res.status. We don't have to write we don't have to use a method called write head. which is provided by HTTP. That's all abstracted, so it makes our job a lot easier. For now, I won't be using that. I'll just use send. I'll just send a normal string. Uh, who is this? Okay. Also, I'll create a script over here. You can write any script related to your project over here. You can have multiple scripts here. Here on the left hand side, you will see the name of the script, and here the main thing. So I'll be running nodemon server purchase. So now nodemon is gonna watch this server. I mean this file, and if it sees any change, and it's gonna rerun the server. Okay. So I'll run the script in another tab. And the node mon seems to be running now, and we have an error. Okay. 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 Actually, we don't have any server.js file. It's actually inside the src folder. I didn't see that, so I made a mistake. Let's run now. I didn't actually use any middleware yet, so in the future I'll be using one. I'll show you that. And we're already listening to 4000. Yeah, in the already listening to 400 to it again. I'll just close the server on both sides. Cool. Now it's up and running. Let's make a curl request to see if it actually works. And it's a normal GET request, so no. And we got who is this? Now let's make it a bit more complex. Let's just create, have some mock data, and we'll be serving that. Let's create data.js. I'll just create this. It's just gonna be an array of anything. Array of objects. Okay. Okay. Let's say Tony. Age. Peter and make this guy 100. Okay, so we have our data ready. Let's export it. We'll be serving this data using our API. So whenever somebody makes a GET request, we want to send this data. So let's see what happens when I directly send. Let's import our data first. Let's see what happens. It won't work though, but let us just see. See, it knows that we can't do that. Okay, actually, what's the path? Okay. Do I have to specify D? Okay, let's specify yes. Okay, cool. Okay, let's see. Let's make a request and see if we got the data. Cool, but it's in a string format. I mean, it's stringified. And okay, on the client you can actually okay, you can parse it to get the actual data. And also, like if you just directly want to send the data, what you can do is string format. If you don't want it to go in the string format, you can specify what kind of data it is using a header that is content type header, and the type you want to specify will be application dash JSON. That should be the type that you want to specify while sending JSON data to your client. But obviously, Express has a method called JSON that internally does that job, so we don't have to do anything. Okay. Now let's create a post request handler. Okay, on post request we'll be adding the data, so we'll be sending some data from our client side, and that we can access through request object be on body, and we can use that to get the data whatever the client has sent. In this case, we'll just print the data first. Let's see what happens, what we get. And here we'll just send. Cool. And let's send the data to it this time. Okay. Actually, okay. Let's send a JSON object, and it would be similar to whatever we had in our data.js. The structure will be the same because later on we'll be adding the logic to append this whatever we send to this array. I'll just add neck and page, and this is a proper JSON. Okay, and let's put 20, and let's specify the API. We got cool. Let's see what we received. See, we received undefined. We send data, but still it says undefined. It's because we sent a JSON object, but the express wasn't to be to make that data available to us. It should know what kind of data it is. So actually, let's specify the header. And probably it's gonna be undefined the same again too. Anyway. So now we have specified that the type of the data is JSON, but still it's not able to parse it because okay. So we have middleware. So a middleware called express.json. What it does is it looks at the content type. whenever it sees the content type as application slash JSON, it takes that it sees the body and it tries to parse it. So when we try to access it over here, we get the object. So to use the middleware, we just have to use the use method on our instance of Express app, and let's see now. Now you can see we have the object because it was able to see that content type as application.json, and when it saw that, it parsed the body, and when we try to access it, we could access it, as you can see over here. So now let's mutate our data using these requests. So post will create one delete, two delete, as we discussed, right? These have semantic meaning, so we'll abide by those. So we'll use post to create uh, you know we'll po- create we'll use post to create an object and append it to our like, their data, and we'll use get to get an object from the data, and delete to delete one. So obviously, while when we're trying to get, we need to, okay, we can send the whole date, all the data, or we can just send just one object based on some condition. So here we'll specify, we'll try to get the age. Okay, so in the request, in the route, we'll specify params. Okay, so name, let's say name. So now we know, it's now we know that whenever a client makes a request to to an endpoint similar to this, it tries to see the pattern. Like the name could be dynamic, but it has, okay. So anytime the client sends get request to slash Tony slash Peter, it knows that okay, this after slash the part is dynamic. So we can access this using an object, a method on request object, that is params. So let's say, okay, cool, name equals to request dot params, you can, okay, and name, it knows, the LSP in my VS Code knows. Cool. We'll find the object. Mm, we'll filter based on, if we found the same name, we'll just, okay, actually I'll just say find, not filter, because if there are multiple, it's gonna return all of them. Actually it returns an array, not that. So yeah, now I'll just return user, and in the post will just be appending. So let's, okay, we were already importing data, and let's name it something else. Let's say user, and let's just append it to our push. And the same will just send us status code that is 200. Like, okay, everything was done, there was no error and all. That's what this status code means. This time we'll just use filter. Okay, and also like whenever you make like okay, all the methods in all the methods you can send uh, some data in the body except in get. You can't send in data in get method. So again, we'll be deleting users by user, or we can actually use params over here too. Let's use that. And we'll just return. Maybe it's not gonna return anything. Okay. Let's send our data to let's send a let's send an object also, or just send not an object, just a message. And here added. And here we're already sending the JSON, so we won't be able to use send. Okay, let's just use these three, and let's see if we have any error. Okay, no, there are no error. Let's see if it works. Okay, so okay, let us also print it. Okay, to see if it is modified or not. So after modification, okay, yep. Let us just send. We got the message as added, and yes, it was added. I sent Nick and age was 20, and it got pushed to that array, and we printed it right after you know we pushed it, and we got it. Yeah. So now we know that post request handler works. Let's try get request, and now we'll be passing the params. So I'll write Nick. See, I was able to get it. Let's make a get request. And okay, let's also create a method to get all the users. No. Okay, cool. Now I won't get it because it like the data was in memory, and when it restarted it lost all of it. So yeah, obviously let's create it again now. Rerun that request. It got added. I mean, let's see if it got added or not. It did get added. Let's get the nick. We are able to get that. Let's delete it. So let's make a delete request. and we have to match the pattern. Okay. Okay. Okay, it's a cons. Okay, I cannot make any changes to that data. Cool. Oh no, the whole thing is gone again. Cool. It's okay. We'll try again. We'll first get all the data. We have whatever, as you can see, we have the data that we receive all the objects. I mean, we get the whole array. Let's add something. It was added. We got, as you can see. Let's just get one of them. One of them. We were able to get it. Let's make a delete request to the same thing. Okay, it is an array. Okay, just one sec. Okay, cool. Okay, let's just print first, like whether we are getting. Okay, obviously we don't have Niket over here there, so Niket Tony, we get the same thing. We can. Oh, okay, wait one sec. Assignment to constant variable. Okay, but we're not doing that, are we? Why? Okay, wait, let's see. Okay, we didn't. Okay, we didn't even get this. Okay, maybe we cannot do this. Then- Okay, let's just pass data next time. Okay, we can get it from data body. Okay, and yes. Let's make it 20. Wait, nope, I should not be doing this. 8 amp. Okay, good. Okay, it's an expresses internal error. But what am okay? It should be working though. Let's see. Same. We've got body too. We know the type of the body. Okay, cool. Okay, somehow route the dispatch, blah blah blah. Okay, get in post. Why? Wait, one sec. Yes. Let's. Okay. Hmm. Let's just see if it works. Obviously, it should not be this. Hmm. Result is not defined. Obviously, we should be doing. Okay, I couldn't reassign to data even though it was just let. Maybe it exports as JSON. Cool. Let's change one thing. Okay, maybe. Okay. Import something we cannot just reassign to this. Okay, we cannot reassign to this variable. We need to have some method over here in order to, you know, to change the state of this data. what I'll do is I hope I won't get the same problem over here. Now we will be able to, I guess. Let's try. Let's see. Okay, it got deleted. Let's check if it actually worked. Wait. Okay, I'll write the whole thing. Fine. Tony did not get deleted though. What the hell? Cool. I mean, it doesn't matter actually because it's an object. So even if it is const, you can not reassign it, but you will be able to mutate it. Okay, I'll just give it one more try. Okay, I'll just create a class db and yes. Mm. We'll just mock our database over here. It would be fast. And we can just move this. Cool. And one more for getting all the requests. Now we have all the methods, or we just need to add one, right, for the post request. So so now we have our class and it has all the methods. In in future, when you will learn testing, this is how they usually mock database. So you can learn something. And just export this class. Now to I'll create a new instance of our database. And yes, okay, cool. Here I'll just return data dot get name. We don't need this anymore. And here we're just returning everything. So it's data dot get all. That was the function that we wrote which returned everything. And for pushing, I mean for adding, it was data dot add, and it took user object. Cool. Data dot remove, and we'll pass name. Let's see if it works now. We'll also okay. We'll also print this thing just in case to see what we actually receive from our client. Cool. The server is working fine. Let's now get, and then we'll not delete it again. Let's just skip it. Okay. So in case you have like for a like here you can see like I had a single endpoint that was slash, and I handle I handle all the requests. In case like you have like multiple endpoints, and for all those you have multiple methods that you want to handle, you will end up with a lot of handlers. Like just for handling four methods, I have lots of you know code in a single file. To make it more clean, you can use a router feature of Express.js. So you can create a router object, and then you can just specify all the methods in just this single file, and then it will be exporting a router, and you can use that router as a handler in your server.js. And just like in server.js, I'll just take all the code from here. Same, it's the same thing actually. Now I'll just replace all the app with all no app to router. And yep, cool. So now I have all the methods for a single endpoint in this one folder. I mean one file. Now you can see it's cleaner. Now you can import router from that file. I'll write user router. You can choose any name because it's exporting by default. You don't. It doesn't have to be the same name as whatever it is exporting here. And here you can just use the same method, and first will be and in when you're passing router object, case the first argument should be the path or the endpoint for which you want the router to work. Now you can see like here we have repeated slash. Okay, it's okay actually because we don't have a complex endpoint. In case you have like API slash user as an endpoint, what you can do is you can just write a slash API slash user here, and here you can just use slash directly. You don't have to write that again and again. Let's see if it works. It's worked. I mean, yeah, we don't have any error, but let's see if we are getting. No, data is not defined. Cool. Okay, yeah, this should be in our router file. Import it to. Cool. And we have it. And this is how you can create a REST API using Express.js. You can also try Nest and Harpy, and Harpy is outdated actually. Nobody supports it now. I mean, doesn't maintain it. You can use those, or you can build your own library framework too if you want. That's it from my side.
Okay, so that's all from my side. So now we'll be listening to some of your doubts, and we'll be trying to clear them. So one common problem was here that some of you guys were not familiar with Node.js and you were just confused. So was just an introductory demo, and you should know that if you want to do the same in any other languages, the most of the HTTP functions would be the same. So you will have to listen to the URL the same way in any other programming language, even in Java. If you use Spring or some other framework, you will have to use the same thing there. So it's not bound to just Node.js. You can do it in any other framework if you want. So any other doubts? Okay, so we'll be winding up in a minute. So just let us know if you have any doubts. Okay, so I don't think you guys have any doubts. So that's all from our side. Thank you for attending.
Uh, just wait a sec. Actually, there wasn't any mistake with my code in the delete when I was handling delete. It was actually I didn't write proper curl command. That's why I was getting error all the time. So yeah, it, the code was fine. Only the client command was wrong. I forgot to mention content type while making a post request. I specified the content type was application slash JSON, but while sending a delete request, I forgot to mention, and that's why I was getting that error. So yeah, now you know that specifying the content type that you're sending to your server, it's important, so that the server knows what kind of data you're sending and then later pass it to make any use of it. Thank you. Let me show you the ones. Cool, if it is actually working or not. I'll just show. Let's get all the users. Now we have Tony, Peter, and Steve, and let's make a delete request, and let's get our all the objects again. And as you can see, we don't have Tony because the send the request was right. Thank you. You all can leave.